in a lost chapter of Tokyo Vice, one of the things you have to do as a freshman, like you're covering the police beat, you have to cover high school baseball.
Wow.
So because Japan doesn't have like big college baseball or professional baseball is professional baseball, but the equivalent of like hometown games is like these high school baseball tournaments where everybody roots for like the high school from their hometown. And they have this national tournament called Koshien that gets televised nationally. And it was a big deal like 30 years ago. So, they're like, okay, you're going to have to cover high school baseball. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to practice keeping score. I'm like, like Adelstein, you'll do well at this. And I'm like, no, I won't. And they're like, why not? Because I don't know anything about baseball. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know anything about baseball? You're an American. And I'm like, you're Japanese and your national sport is officially sumo. Would you like to break down the last tournament to me and tell me who won, what moves they were doing?
I will say stereotype-wise, it is very funny because they think that Americans are really into baseball. And like one of the nicknames for us is Yankee.
Oh, yeah.
Because they think about baseball.
Oh, no. Yankee was a nickname before the baseball team existed.
That's true. I'm sorry. I can't give credit to that without
what
seeming
makes it even harder is that during the World War II, baseball was still a big thing, but they wanted to stop using all the westernized names. So like the dead ball, right, is called a shikyu, but it's also called deadboru or a strikey. And so they have like all the Japanese terms for baseball, then they have the English terms. When you're writing these articles, you're supposed to know like which term to use. And then they taught us to keep score. Have you ever tried to watch a baseball game and keep score and write an article about it?
That's difficult.
No, I get day drunk and eat hot dogs.
Could you?
I mean, that's what I do at baseball games. I get day drunk and eat hot dogs. That's all I do.
Well, so we were assigned to do this, and I was so bad at it. At first, you could kind of bluff your way through because you're writing like, like 3 or 4 lines, like, Team B, gave it their best shot, but didn't have to what it takes. But then you would have to be getting like breaking it down and doing analysis of like Team A had like, this many stolen bases and this many hits, and the game changed when somebody had like a 2-base hit. And I turn in my articles, and I would get screamed at by the editor. And I am not going to survive high school baseball. But at this point in time, we still had film, right? We were still using film. So we had these kids from one of the high schools, and their job was to like get the film, either get in a taxi or get on a train and take it up to get developed.
Wow.
So there was this one kid, Takashi-kun, who I could tell was really smart. And so I took Kashikatsu in the sense that like, I don't understand baseball. I am dying here. I will pay you 1,000 yen a day to just read over my articles before I send them in. And so by the end of the period, I had paid this kid like $200. And when we got to do the last one, and it was like a complicated game, I had no fucking idea what was going on. And I started writing, and he just took to me and said, Jake's on. And he just moved me away from the and he wrote the article. Bah, 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 bah. And he's like, do you want to look it over? And I looked it over, and it looks good to me.
You gotta give him a raise for that one.
I gave him 2,000 yen more. And I was like, kid, you saved my life. And he was like, it was so horrible. So the next year, we had to do it again. And like, there was like a murder, and like I volunteered. I'm like, no, like I'll go to the crime scene. Like I left my post to go to the crime scene. And I was like, I have to continue covering this story because I'm the first one on the scene. It was like, please. I hated high school baseball so much. It almost cost me my job.
Really secretly, your avarice in going into the crime scenes was just to avoid high school baseball.
I would much rather write about the horrible murder than I cover some sweaty punk. Oh, and then I had one article which got totally killed, which I took out of the trash, but I really loved it. And it was about this, and it was an open sort of like, there's a man in a shabby jean jacket holding a newspaper in his hand, looking at the games intently with his eyes on every single move. And it was like, he's bet $200 that Team A, the Urawa Eagles are going to win this game. But in the third inning, as the other team scores a 4 home run, it looks hopeless for him. And as the game ended, he was, getting ready to leave. He muttered to himself, "I guess I'm going to be eating cup ramen tonight." And I turned it in, and I got so yelled at him. It's high school baseball. This is purity. You're writing a game about someone illegally betting on the outcome of a baseball game.
Were people actually betting on it?
Yeah. And I talked to him. I interviewed him. He's betting on the outcome of the baseball. He had a newspaper in his hand. He's clearly tracking the teams. I'm like, isn't that really the kind of feel you want? Like, I'm supposed to sort of convey what's happening at the arena.
But they probably wanted it to be simple and classic and innocent. Like, it's high school baseball.
Right, there's no degenerate gamblers betting on high school. Like, what level of degenerate gambler are you? They're like, high school baseball. I'm betting on high school baseball. Like, I may not be able to pay my rent this month because high school baseball.
But we can see where your heart was at because you wanted to really get the nitty gritty of this story.
Japanese, it was so beautifully written. It was such a great line. Like, no.
I'm so sorry.
スタジアムを
That it
後
was
にしながら、今日はカップラーメン食べるしかない。つぶやいた。And then the other one that got me in serious trouble is like, because, I didn't realize that high school baseball in Japan is touted as this like sort of nationalistic, story of stoic endurism and blood and sweat and tears and, that the Japanese spirit triumphing over everything else. So I was mentioning like, yeah, today's game was so fucking boring, but at least like I was able to bum a cigarette off one of the kids behind the bleachers. They really liked my clove cigarettes. And they're like, what? Kids smoking? Like, kids can't smoke in Japan? They're like, who was this kid? And I realized,
isn't it illegal drinking age 18?
Oh no!
I don't know what illegal drinking is. Nobody pays any attention to it.
Right.
Not when I was.
You can just drink whenever age you're at.
You get booze from a vending machine.
Oh.
Well, I mean, like, yes.
Ouch.
Yes.
But so I realized that I'd gotten this kid in huge trouble because I'd shut off my mouth. I knew exactly who I was talking about. So I was like, they're yelling at me and screaming. I'm like, I'll have to go. Like, let me go check my notes. And I'm like, oh, I must have been wrong. It was the coach. Sorry for causing such a sensation. So I see the kid like 2 weeks later in another game because they're into the run-ups. And I'm like, dude, like, I need to tell you, you should not be smoking behind the bleachers. But I almost got you kicked off and me fired. Like, so do not do that because you're going to get in serious trouble. And he's like, oh man, I'm so glad you didn't rat me out. I'm like, of course I wouldn't rat you out, but like, you can't smoke behind the bleachers. Like, smoke somewhere else.
I didn't rat you out. My editor stopped me.
No, they wanted that story so badly. They're like, scandal, baseball, high school baseball scandal. And I was thinking like, fuck that shit. I mean, what's the crime? The kid's a little juvenile delinquent. He's like from, what was the school? It was like some school in like Kawaguchi. It's like like this really redneck kind of blue collar district of Saitama. I think it was from like Bunan High School or something. I'm not going to ruin this kid's life because because he was dumb enough to give me one of his smokes. No, thank you.
You're a good man, Jake. You're a good man.
Thank you. Sometimes
very honorable.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I am.
That's all we can hope to be is sometimes.